Thank you very much to the organizers. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you. My name is Kasujja. I am Ugandan. I'm currently based in Uganda. I have been based in London for the last 13 years, but I'm very happy to be back home. So the topic that I was given to talk about quite interesting. How is a development story told? And to be honest, this is going to be the shortest presentation so that I don't bore you too much. The truth of the matter is that development story is not being told, certainly not the African story. When you sit where I have been sitting for the last so many years, you find that Africa is not represented, and that is not just one of those things that are talked about. It's a fact that not many Africans are heard or seen. The African intelligentsia is not front and center of talking about the African reality. So there will be journalists parachute to African situations who lack context and who lack the local knowledge to be able to give stories justice. Now, that is a big problem. And when we created Africa Daily, a part of it was a frustration. I used to do a live radio show called Newsday, which is the biggest breakfast show in the world. And the frustration came from the fact that an important story developed, an important story made the headlines, but because it's a live broadcast, you only had 2 minutes to tell that story. And this is on the biggest platform that story could ever be told, because it's live radio. Now, the problem with that is you miss the nuance, you miss the context, you miss the details, you miss the reality, you miss the people who live that reality. And so we created Africa Daily, where we were basically saying, number one, and this was an insistence on my part, I do not want to hear anybody who is not from Africa, who is not African, talking about African issues. Number one. Number two, we want to do one African story and unpack it so that we can tell it comprehensively, so that we can tell it with all the nuance, with all the corners, bring African voices to the fore. Now, you who is involved in a development world, who is doing very important work, faces a bigger challenge because, first of all, the language you use in your interaction, not just with each other, but with the rest of us, just makes no sense to us. I don't understand what you guys are saying half the time, personally. And I am a senior journalist of some repute. But that is partly because it seems like a little world locked out there where we can talk stakeholders and talk about all these other things that do not fit into normal conversations. You just say your own things, you enter a meeting, and it's all these things, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, what are these guys saying? What are you talking about? And then it feels to me like you guys are just protecting your jobs, just, being, if we bring people in, they're going to take these opportunities. That's a real problem, to be honest with you. And the reason why it's a problem is that story will only remain amongst you guys. So it is important that the rest of the world gets to know what you're talking about, what you're doing. But that opportunity is missed because of this. Oh, so the stakeholders benchmarked. Why don't you just make normal people? Why don't you just say, why don't you give me? And the one question you must always answer when you're approaching a guy like me is, what is the story? I don't care that you have released a new product. That is not a story. Everybody is releasing a new product every day. The story should be that a woman in Malawi can now protect herself from HIV because there is this new thing that she can deploy. That I'm interested in doing. I'm interested in doing that story. Don't tell me that, we have allocated $1 million. Nobody cares about that. Nobody cares that you have released $10 billion. No. Talk to me about the impact on the communities, about what's actually going on the ground. What are people doing? What is the impact of what you're doing? That is where the real story lies. It's not in all these boardroom things that you're doing, all these meetings you're having. It is in the reality that people are living. That is where the real story is, and that is what you should be concentrating on. So, here is a key part. This is, if you take away anything from this rambling of mine, it should be that, number one, tell your own stories. Actually, This idea that someone from the BBC, CNN, blah, 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 is interested in your story is delusional. When you're done here and drawing budgets, make sure you have a department that tells your story. And call me. I will, yakasujja@gmail.com. Call me, write to me, tell me what your challenge is, and we shall help pack it. I shall bring you someone in your country to help you tell that story better. Because that is the only solution to your predicament. I'm not interested in statistics. I'm not interested in graphs, because those are not interesting things. The real story is that this young girl has managed to stop pregnancy amongst teenagers in her community. Or these people in Zimbabwe, there's a lovely story we did from Zimbabwe about a bench. People dealing with mental health, because these women were able to sit down on a bench with another woman and talk about their issues. Those are the real stories. Not, oh, we were given a, no, 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 no. Okay, lastly, storytelling should be the core and probably the most important part of your work, because that is what stands out. And if that story gets traction in your country, in the communities in which you live, in the communities in which you're working, then the rest of the world will sit up and listen and watch. Otherwise, nobody's interested in your story. Nobody's telling your story. Nobody's telling your development story. It's about time you learned how to tell your own story, number one. Number two, nobody's coming to save you. Nobody's coming to save you from that predicament of not being able to tell your own story. Number three, you are your own savior. You are the one who you have been waiting for to tell your story. So that concludes my submission. I don't know if it's been useful. I hope it has been useful. But ultimately, the key thing is tell your own story. And when you tell it, leave out all this nonsense, all this vocabulary from the development world, because frankly, nobody cares about it, and it has absolutely no mileage anywhere. I thank you.